Hello, everybody, and good morning. My name is Neil Coulong. I am the host of today's episode of the New Standard Podcast. Thank you all for joining in. Wherever you are out there, Lance Williams is on assignment again today. I believe he is undercover somewhere in the Middle East. That is all I'm allowed to say, and that's all I'm going to say. But while he's out saving all of us from whatever evil and bad doers are out there, we are going to talk Steelers football. We are going to talk week 4 versus the Jets. I have JetWire editor Billy Ricchetti is going to join me here in a little while. We're going to discuss Mike Tomlin's press conference from yesterday. We might even get into our favorite topic. Whose fault is it? Matt Canada, Mitch Trubisky, all of the above or other. Thank you all again for signing in. Let's see where we're going to start off here today. Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting at 1-2. Not a good look the last 2 weeks, probably not even a very good look for the last 3 weeks. Not a team right now that looks to be imposing the fear of anything into anybody. And beyond the Jets, where the Steelers are 3.5-point favorites at Redefine Stadium this Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff, they are 3.5-point favorites, probably for the last time they're going to be favored in a game for quite a while. Beyond that, they've got a brutal stretch of games. Whether or not you feel that they need to worry about the Jets, beyond that, far more of the problem. You're looking at Buffalo versus the Buccaneers, at Dolphins, and at Eagles. While I'm not completely sold on where the Buccaneers are right now, I think what we've seen to this point in the season, the Bills, Dolphins, and Eagles are 3 teams you do not want to play, and they're playing all 3 of them on the road. Prime time, Sunday Night Football at the Dolphins. At the Eagles' regular game, I would think they would want to flip that if they had the opportunity to, but they're not going to be able to. But at the Bills looms after this one. Not a good situation for the Steelers coming in. If you are sitting at 2-2, heading into a stretch where they're going to be the underdog in all 4 of those games, 1-3 is probably a positive thing for the Steelers coming out of that. So you'd then be looking at 3-5, which would not be the worst thing in the world, but they're going to need to win against the Jets, in my opinion, here to have any hope at the midway point through to the finishing poll of the season. Your thoughts on that? What do you guys think of the Steelers schedule as this is wrapping up? Drop me a comment in here. Again, my name is Neil Coulong. You are watching/listening to the New Standard Podcast. We are discussing the Steelers heading into week 4 of the NFL season. Their game at Redefine Stadium versus the New York Football Jets. Those goddamn Jets. Billy Ricchetti of JetWire is going to come on here in a little bit. We're going to get to that. But Lance and I talked about this a lot. You know what? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. What I want to do, I want to dive into kind of a wrap-up of Steelers coach Mike Tomlin's press conference and the news that came out of that yesterday. First, we'll lead with the injury stuff. Probably the most troubling of all, Steelers free safety Minkah Fitzpatrick is in the concussion protocol. There is no timetable yet, as is usually the case. Tomlin said that practice participation will be their guide. They don't know exactly what Minkah's status is going to be heading into this game, but that obviously is a massive component to what the Steelers are able to do defensively, certainly from a playmaking perspective. The Steelers got gashed on the ground versus Cleveland in the Thursday night game in week 3. They have a mini bye week here to hopefully shore some things up. And one of the things apparently they noticed, and I agreed with because I felt the same way, was the presence of Tyson Alualu was not yielding the results that many thought they were going to. When Alualu went down, not even all that long into the 2021 season, many thought that the problem with their run defense stemmed from his absence on the field. his injury was not thought to be something that would disable him or cripple him or make it, extremely hard for him to come back. My stance as far as Alu went all off season was you're paying a guy a lot of money to be 35 years old and rehab from an injury. While it's not a joint or ligament injury, he broke his ankle. Anybody who's reached the age of 35 and beyond knows that recovery is not something that you just count on automatically. If he's 25, you're okay with the possibility of him coming back to who he was. At his age, the old adage, and I swear by this, you don't get better at playing football by not playing football. At his age, that's doubly true, simply because your body needs a lot of time to recover from not playing. You have to get back into shape. It's not about the injury. It's about your body. And with all due respect to Alu, the guy's a warrior throughout his entire career, absolutely deserves any and all accolades, Steeler for life, that sort of thing. It's been a great player. I didn't like his chances of coming back fully. And frankly, through 3 games, we saw that to be the case. He's not getting the job done. And Mike Tomlin said that Montravius Adams, who they also signed this offseason, will be the new starting nose tackle. Adams's play, I think, has been reasonable to this point. I don't know how good it's been, but it's been better than Alu. And clearly it's something that the Steelers have indicated is one of the problems with their run defense. I think Adams is solid enough of a player that he's able to hold down the fort more or less until they can really kind of get things figured out defensively in the absence of TJ Watt, which is still going to go on for another, I believe, 3 games after this one. So they're going to enter the toughest part of their schedule beyond this week. The bulk of that will be played without Watt, and probably you're not getting Watt at full 100% for a little bit after that. Give him a chance to get his football legs back under him. Is this move, does this move indicate that Alu is the sole problem? No. We get into too many of these arguments. Too much is made out of the idea that there is one linchpin to everything. Make this one move and everything is going to be fine. Football is the ultimate team game. One player's performance affects the performances of those around him. One play call affects everybody who's on the field. Everybody has a hand on the pile if you're not performing well, or if you are performing well. Some more than others. There are some moves that just need to be made. I'm not going to suggest that Alu was individually responsible for Nick Chubb running largely unchecked and unchallenged across the Steelers defense on Thursday night, particularly in the second half. But his play was not up to par. And I think at the very least, the message is being sent by Mike Tomlin, as well as the rest of the defensive coaching staff, that a change needed to be made, and they're willing to make those changes. But what about time? But what about Mitch Trubisky? Do you bench Mitch Trubisky? Do you want to go with Kenny Pickett? Do you strap Matt Canada the closest light rail train and send him out of town? All these options, I'm sure, are on the table to some degree, but as Tomlin clearly pointed out very quickly into the press conference, they're not making moves to that degree at this time. But I believe his phrase was, but we're not going to be left blowing in the wind either. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I think it's a veiled shot to everybody on the team that he's not above making the move, and they are considering it. Whether they're going to do it or not is a different story. It's not off the table. I don't know how much leash Mitch Trubisky has. I don't know how much leash Mitch Trubisky needs. What I know is that Mitch Trubisky has not played well, regardless of what Mike Tomlin has said about it. And these are his comments from his press conference yesterday. Mike Tomlin. Decision-making and where he's going with the ball, the time in which he's making decisions, these are things that he sees as positive from Trubisky's play right now. The prudent use of mobility, whether it's by schematics or by ad lib, just generally all areas. I don't, where he's going with the ball. I saw this stat, and unfortunately I can't put it up here because I'm not technically savvy enough to do that. But the Steelers are top 5 in the league as far as basically getting rid of the ball to a target quickly. He's not sitting on it. He's not taking forever to make a decision, therefore having to kind of chuck up heave and pray situations or throw it away or take sacks. I'll give him that. If Trubisky is doing anything, he's finding his target very quickly in his read and he's throwing the ball there. Whether that should be the target or not is a matter of some debate. This is where you get into the role that Matt Canada is playing, what exactly they're looking to do on offense, and would that change significantly if Trubisky was not in the game versus if they were to elevate Kenny Pickett, the rookie out of Pitt, for a starting job, his first start of his NFL career. It's like this. Your quarterback receives the snap with the idea in mind that there is a primary target on the play. The primary target is what the play call is in a passing game. There are things that you are doing for that, but if your primary target is going to be isolated, so if you're playing an ISO passing game, you're not setting him up with anybody. And really the idea is give him the opportunity to make his move and get him the ball. That is almost entirely what the Steelers are doing, particularly on first downs to this point in the season. Defenses seem to be responding to that. And whether or not secondary, tertiary, outlet receivers are open with the ability to make a play, the primary target seems to be the one Trubisky is going to. That's the early release, the quick release that we're seeing from him. That's part of the lack of sacks, too. Even uber freak athletes like Chase Young aren't getting to the quarterback if he's throwing the ball less than a second after the ball is snapped. It's really hard to ask them for those kinds of sacks to come up. And at the same time, for protection's sake, if you're coaching your quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly, to go, really what you're saying is go to your primary read, and that's pretty much it. That's what their offense has been. This is not necessarily something that is exclusive to Trubisky, but at the same time, that's really all Trubisky does and has in his career. So you've got, sadly, the real marriage of why I felt Trubisky, the signing of Trubisky was, one, not a great move, and two, indicative that their offense was going to be exactly the same as last year when it wasn't very good. These problems are reeling their head right now simply because Trubisky is not deviating from the plan that he's being given, and this team is simply not effective offensively. Tomlin does everything that he can to shake the blame from the quarterback, which is fair. Again, it's not completely on the quarterback, but comes a point here they're going to need to start to man up and make some plays down the field. They have the weapons to be able to do that. You're starting to hear, some quiet nods of agitation coming from the receivers. One's not named Deontay Johnson, who's getting force-fed the ball 10, 11 times a game. They're going to need to do a bit more than what they have. And I think their stats of the results-based stats clearly show that. They're among the last in the league in yards per play at like 5.1 or something to that regard. They're a 44% third down conversion team. They're bleak in the second half. Most of their 3-and-out possessions are coming in the second half, and their defense is on the field more than any other defense in the game is. These stats, I feel, are being amplified and contributed to by the fact that they don't possess the ball, and that's because they're doing the same thing play after play, and certainly half to half. It's not taking defenses much to figure out what the Steelers are doing quickly, and the Steelers are not deviating from that. Does that matter if you change the quarterback out then? Your scheme, logically, and I understand the grandfather namesake of this podcast is related to Tomlin's old adage, the standard is the standard. That's a way to motivate the people who are on the team, and it's certainly a simplified way to sell the idea that they're not quitting to their fan base. But you don't have the same game plan from one quarterback to another. You just can't. You're making way too much money and you're dedicating way too much time to tell me that these players are similar enough at the 10,000 foot level that we don't need to change anything from our league's bottom 5 offense. There are things that I feel Pickett can do better than Trubisky. I think he's a better deep ball thrower. I think he sees the field better than Trubisky does. Trubisky, though, is not reaching punitive status with the coaching staff from what we can surmise. They're not benching him. He's doing what they're asking him to do. So to me, you have a dual problem of the schematic choices game to game that you're calling on offense, and a quarterback that is probably being protected by only having one read. And I don't mean literally they only have one read. It's just that's who he's going to the vast majority of the time. He's not progressing through anything else. He's not seeing the entire field, and they're not empowering him to do that. That's by design. They want him to get rid of the ball. If you have a quarterback that can see the field, will throw the ball accurately deep, which we don't get from Trubisky in the very few times that he's actually done that, you're not going to call the same plays series in and series out if you have a quarterback that can fundamentally and dynamically do more on the field than what we've seen from Mitch Trubisky right now. That does not mean they're going to bench him, and I don't think that they will. If they really felt a change was needed, they probably would have done it leading into this week. Clearly, that's not the case. I don't know how much they want to plan to do it. Their bye week is, I believe, week 7. Maybe it's something they want to make a decision on then. But for now, looks like they are going to continue with Mitch Trubisky. And to be honest, I don't really see things changing for the better. But Steelers fans, there is optimism, because it's not as if the New York Football Jets, the goddamn Jets, are a defensive juggernaut in the NFL. Not the way that they've played to this point. They have individual players. I talked with a few people about the rookie Sauce Gardner. They love what they're seeing from him so far. They have Quinnen Williams, who's been a beast up front for them, an excellent rising young defensive tackle in the league. There are playmakers on the defensive side of the ball for them. They haven't put that all together yet. And I feel like this is a get-right game for Pittsburgh in a couple of different ways offensively. We're going to watch the game, of course, and we're going to tune in. You guys are going to tune into the show afterwards, and I'll tell you how right or wrong I was about that. But I feel like this is the type of game the Steelers can put things together and find a little bit more on a couple third downs, especially in the second half, and get another touchdown or two out of it, and maybe land in that, right now seems like unachievable 27-point range. I know how crazy that is for the Steelers offense, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm going to get into that with my special guest, Billy Ricchetti here of JetWire. He is the managing editor of JetWire, and he clearly is not on not on the camera at the moment. I'm just going to leave it here until he comes back. He'll know that he's here. Billy just took over for us this year with the Jets. Very exciting young team. Robert Saleh, I think, is
That's the one time I can't hear anything.
Now he can hear anything he says. Oh, I can mute him. Okay, sorry. Yeah, he's done great work for us since taking over right before training camp. We're very excited to have him, and we're going to break down the Jets here in a second when he gets here. We're going to get into predictions. Feel free to leave those here. I'm going to talk about that toward the end of the show, but just while we're waiting, I'm going to grab a comment here. I love this question, Wes, just simply because this really is kind of life defined. It really is chicken versus the egg. Is it a confidence issue or an intelligence issue? In a lot of ways, I'll say this. I think he's not confident because I don't think that he's all that smart of a player. I've watched every snap he's taken in his career. I've talked to a lot of people that know far more about quarterback play and football in general than I do. Nobody who really knows gives you a good sense of Mitch Trubisky being a project who can be built into something. He has to play within a system. If he deviates from that, he makes a lot more mistakes. And bad things happen. I know that he had some minor success at one point in his career. Matt Nagy was not Matt Nagy was not the worst coach who's ever lived, the way that he was made out to be by Bears fans and Steelers fans after they signed Trubisky in an effort to convince themselves that Trubisky is a good player. Here's the thing, for everybody who's watched the show, you know my feelings on Mitch Trubisky. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Mitch Trubisky, and I'm not going to anytime soon. What we have seen from Trubisky to this point is exactly who Mitch Trubisky is. They've done a great job of coaching Mitch Trubisky to be Mitch Trubisky. That's the most backhanded compliment that I could possibly give, but I'm not sure there's anything more I could really say about it in affirmation of his play. He is just a very limited player. There's not much he can do beyond what he's doing. So what I see, and we can label this, whether it's a confidence thing, whether it's an intelligence thing, I break it down to vision. When I see Trubisky play, you look at the wide angle of the field, you see receivers who are there. Trubisky has decided when the ball hit his hand exactly where he's going with the ball. He plays quick game almost exclusively. What that means is he's designed to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. So there are 3 receivers on the field, or 4 or 5. There's only one that he's really looking to throw to. If he has to get off of the first receiver, he's moving out of the pocket. Even when he moves out of the pocket, he's still locked into his primary receiver. And it's almost a guarantee that he's going to wait until a rush gets close to him. He's going to find a stationary target and he's going to deliver off his back foot. That's a quick game kind of mentality. That's really all he does. If you put him in structure, it doesn't work very well. And what we've seen to this point is exactly what he looked at as for the vast majority of his career. Do we want to call that intelligence? I'm not sure. I don't know, but it's field vision in my mind. It's spatial awareness. You'll notice this too. He doesn't throw to moving targets very well. He throws almost behind them to the point where they have to stop and catch the ball straight up. This is why the Steelers are terrible now all of a sudden in yards after the catch. It's probably why the receivers are not generally all that thrilled with what's going on. They're not being put in a position to make plays. It looks like we have Billy here now. I'm going to add him in. Hopefully he is paying attention and hearing me this time. Okay, there's like 3 of them now. I think he's on his computer and his phone at the same time. So we'll go with the one where his face is. And he's gone. This is really working well. Billy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh, my God. What a disaster that was. I'm sorry.
Just for diagnosis sake, are you on a computer and a phone at the same time?
I was, but I just left the studio on my computer. So I should just be on this now. I hope.
I have all kinds of Mitch Trubisky jokes in you right now to make, and I might continue to do that. But yes, thank you for joining us, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
I introed you a little bit before, but just to go over it again, Billy is our JetWire editor. He just took over for us in August, doing a great job there on a team that has a lot of news. It's a very interesting young team, very dynamic head coach, and we've seen in almost kind of an extreme fashion, high-end Jets and low-end Jets over the last. Really the Robert Saleh era. It's been a lot of fun. It's been very exciting. That Bills game was a lot of fun to watch. Thanks for coming out here. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to come on here and chat. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Let me start with this.
Thanks for the kind words.
Definitely. I think this is the most obvious storyline, but Zach Wilson, player that, as we're recording this Wednesday morning Eastern time, it would appear that the indication is that he's going to play. Doctors are going to clear it, but Saleh even said we're waiting for the doctors to confirm it. But the expectation has been that this is the game he would play. Wilson missed the first 3 games with a knee injury earlier this season. He missed some time with the same knee last season as well. But let me ask you this, Billy. If we were to separate by group the quarterbacks of 2021, what group are we putting Wilson in? Is he Justin Fields, who is potentially the worst quarterback in the NFL right now, including Mitch Trubisky, and that's not hyperbole, and Mac Jones, who has not been a very successful certainly not this year? Or do you think that he's more of Trevor Lawrence, who, as expected, is the leader of the class, AFC Offensive Player of the Week? He was just named earlier this morning. Or is he undecided, like Bison legend and 49ers quarterback Trey Lance, who really hasn't had much of an opportunity? Where would you put Zach Wilson in that group?
Yeah, I think he's more that last group you mentioned. I think he's kind of in the middle. I think we're still I think the jury's still kind of out on him. Obviously, he had the knee issues last year as well, so he had never got a chance to really get going. And even when he was out there, struggled a little bit to start the season. Did get a little bit better as the season wore on, and going through training camp this year, I thought he was looking pretty good by all accounts. He was having a strong camp, but then he goes out and, of course, gets injured pretty much one of the first plays of the preseason. So that really derailed his development a little bit too. So I think the jury is still kind of out. I'm not ready to put him on that tier with Trevor Lawrence just yet. Who, it's been really great to see him really step up now and really do better now that he actually has competent coaching. But I don't think he'll be as bad as Justin Fields. I think the offense that he has, I think that the Jets have done a nice job of getting him the talent that he needs. So I think when he finally gets healthy and he has a chance to go out there and throw to Garrett Wilson and have the running back duo that he has in Michael Carter and Breece Hall, I think there is still potential here. I think with his ability to move around in the pocket and a stronger arm, obviously, than Joe Flacco, I think it's going to open up the offense a little bit here. But I think, with the offensive line issues that he has in front of him too, I think there's still a little bit reason to be wary. I think we have to be cautiously optimistic right now with Zach Wilson. So yeah, I would say right now he's really kind of in that middling tier right now, and it's still kind of an incomplete grade, if you will.
It certainly doesn't help that he missed the first 3 games this season. The Steelers likely will be the first team to face Zach Williams and the New York Football Jets with Zach Wilson in Week 4, as the Steelers will host the Jets. I'm Neil Coulong. You're listening to the New Standard Podcast. I'm with my guest, Billy Ricchetti of JetWire. Thanks again, Billy, for coming. But what I was worried about was the possibility of the Jets needing you to play tackle for them.
Yeah.
George Fant is the latest Jets tackle to go on injured reserve. I believe now there are 3 of them there. That almost takes effort at this point. He was placed on injured reserve with a knee injury this week. Something called Connor McDermott appears to start. He took over for Fant, who was getting beat fairly well by the Bengals when he went down, and McDermott didn't look all that great either, in my opinion. On the other side, you have something called Max Mitchell starting at right tackle because Mekhi Becton is on injured reserve as well, the highly touted Jets right tackle. Not really sure what is going on in Bravo country there, Billy, but what is there? You've got now Mike Remmers of Super Bowl fame, who might go down as in legend as the worst offensive tackle in Super Bowl history. He's there, ready to play. Former Bengals star first-round draft pick who never saw the field, Cedric Abui, is also signed with the Jets right now. How do you protect your quarterback with what's happening at the tackle position in New York?
Yeah, hope and pray at this point. I think you just gotta get on your knees and pray to the good Lord above that these guys can somewhat hold the fort down. Now, the nice thing is, I think they are expecting Dwayne Brown to return to practice next week. Whether or not he'll play in Week 5 is to be determined. We don't know how his shoulder is holding up, but at least he's eligible to come off injury reserve very soon here. So this could be the last game without him, but Dwayne Brown is 37 years old. You don't know how quickly he's going to recover from the shoulder injury, if he really is at all. So this is going to be a very, very difficult task for the Jets against these Steelers. I mean, even without TJ Watt, you still have Cam Hayward and all those guys up front that can get after it. And it's really not even just the outside guys, too, that have been struggling. I mean, one of their big free agent splashes has been Laken Tomlinson, and he struggled for the first 3 weeks of the season. So that left side of the line, I think, is very vulnerable in this one. But again, you have a guy that can move around the pocket. You don't have a statue like you did in Joe Flacco. So you have that little bit of hope. But like you said, Connor McDermott came in and after George Fant went down, and he struggled mightily. I think there was a fumble toward the end of the game that basically sealed the Jets' fate, and there was McDermott that led up that sack. So there's just now I will say Max Mitchell has done okay. For being a 4th-round rookie and being thrust into the position that he was, I think he's doing okay. If you look at the PFF grades, he's not the greatest. I think he's something like 54th, but given all the circumstances, he didn't have a lot of practice time. He was mixing in and out with Chuma Edoga in between Becton going down and Dwayne Brown showing up. So he's gotten a little bit of time, but more or less he was thrust into this role. And I think he's been doing okay. So you have a little bit of hope on the right side there. The left side, though, certainly is extremely worrisome. And I think right now it does seem like McDermott is going to be the guy with Obuehi as the top reserve. But, things can happen in an instant, as we've seen with this team.
Yeah, one more tackle away from them giving you the call. And all due respect, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to see that. Trust me.
On the positive side,
Bob Maneri will be doing a bunch of commentary on me, and not for the good reasons.
It'll be great for the site. Good paycheck too. At the very least,
Yeah.
they have to guarantee you 3 games if you can call up the roster. So that's nice. You got that going for you. Another thing the Jets have going for them is Garrett Wilson. He's a problem. That kid's good. Watching him, it just amazes me how good young receivers are coming into the NFL. I'm old, I guess. I remember it wasn't that long ago. Usually rookie receivers didn't play all that much. They needed more time to understand the nuances of the offense, to work on balance, footwork, those kinds of things. There are just dudes coming into the NFL, and Garrett Wilson wasn't even a guy where he was he wasn't drawing all the accolades even of this class. And at the same time, I'm seeing a guy on the Steelers drafted in the 2nd round who might be the best out of all of them. Wilson, though, is game ready. And I love this. I found this in my research. Somebody had asked him about Deontay Johnson, and he claimed to be a fan of the Steelers receiver. And I heard that. I watch him play. He looks like a more souped up, more athletic Deontay Johnson. Like, I don't know how much they don't seem to be using him as a deep threat all that much, but he's a very good between the numbers, inside out kind of receiver. And for a rookie picking up what he has already, that's got to be an encouraging thing for the Jets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you didn't see them. He wasn't utilized a lot in week 1, and there was already grumbling, like, get this guy out here. You took him in the top 10 for a reason. Finally broke out against the Browns in week 2, and then everyone's like, wow, see what happens when you actually let a playmaker actually do his thing. So, it goes back to what I said earlier, that how there is potential in this offense. They just got to tap into it. And Garrett Wilson, absolutely, like you said, he can be all over the field. I mean, he's been making incredible catches. He's like one of those chess pieces, right? He's not locked into one spot. You can put him as like a big slot. You can move him all over the place, and you can just trust him as a quarterback that he's going to be there to make these catches. I mean, even with getting banged up and the offense being sluggish last week, he still had 6 catches for 60 yards, which, in the grand scheme of things is still a solid day, especially when he had to go out for a little bit with that rib injury. So, and like you said, there were some people that maybe didn't even have this guy in their top 5 receivers, because you're talking, they love Drake London, Chris Olave, Jahan Dotson was getting a lot of love, Treylon Burks. Garrett Wilson sometimes seemed to be that guy that's kind of slipped through the cracks. And so,
exactly,
when the Falcons took Drake London at number 8, the Jets pretty much were thinking, well, here's and if I remember it, I don't remember which receiver. I think I might have had them taking Garrett Wilson in my final mock, but it was just one of those pieces that you just felt like it was a perfect marriage. And I know some people are starting to argue like, oh, we should have took a tackle with one of these 1st-round picks, but the talent of these players, like, you're still a building team, and to get a player the talent of Garrett Wilson, that's going to help you build the team, and you get that connection going with Zach Wilson. That's going to be really good for these guys going forward. So I'm really excited to see what this guy can do when they really start to let him loose and he really starts to get more comfortable.
More comfortable. That's good. That's a perfect segue into this. I think the defensive players stood out to me the most, and it wasn't just one of them, but to start off with, Quinnen Williams in year 3 really looks to become. It looks like he's starting to become the man.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of positive success to this point, and it takes a little while to turn into a full blown beast, unless your name is Aaron Donald, along that interior defensive line. He's a problem for the Steelers as well. Typically, though, the Steelers they're in a quick game constantly. They're throwing short. They shouldn't be as susceptible to internal or inside pass rush. How do you feel Williams plays into this game, this strategy? Is his run defense going to be stout enough to hold at the point of attack? Or are they going to try to get him off the field? Are the Steelers going to run more in order to keep him at bay? Do you think that he's that much of a problem for an offense?
Oh, he's becoming a huge problem. I mean, you look at last week where all the talk was this was supposed to be the week the pass rush gets going for the Jets, and they only end up with 2 sacks of Joe Burrow. One of them was Quinnen Williams, and the guy is just a force. I mean, like you said, he's really starting to develop into kind of the centerpiece of this defense, and it's a role that we knew he was going to have to take on going into the season, and he's certainly relished this role big time. He's the heart and soul of this defense right now, whether it's stopping the run or really getting after. You could argue he's even their best pass rusher right now. I think he's actually leading the team in sacks because, I mean, the Jets don't have a lot of sacks, number one. But the fact that Quinnen Williams is one of the biggest pressure makers of this team speaks volume for him in just his 3rd year in the league. So, yeah, obviously he's not at the level of Aaron Donald, but he's in the upper echelon of one of the best D tackles in the game right now. So it's really been fun to watch him develop over these first couple of years, and this really being, and we say, with a lot of positions, don't we, with the 3rd year, this is the breakout year for a lot of these players. Well, you're already seeing it now with Quinnen Williams, and obviously the Steelers have some issues on the interior, so this could be another game where Quinnen Williams is going to have to take over if the Jets want to, get their defense off the field and try to, because we know they can, the Steelers are going to be stout on defense and are probably going to shut down the Jets a little bit on offense. So if the Jets want to hang in there, Quinnen Williams has to just keep doing what he's been doing. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup this week and what he can do.
Weird random stat prediction from me. Quinnen Williams, 2 batted passes in this game. If you watch his full tape over the last 3 games, he has injected himself through a variety of different ways, whether it's batting passes, hurries, quarterback hits, sacks. He's made his presence felt in every game that he's played, and he's tough. The Steelers are going to have a tough time with him. The one, though, I think is the most fun to watch, the rookie Sauce Gardner. This kid gets after it. He's energetic. He's fun. He is, in my opinion, I don't know how far across you are all of this, but for the sake of the audience, Sauce Gardner is the defensive George Pickens. And the idea of these two squaring off, they are probably the 2 biggest trash talkers on either of their teams. They're going to fight each other, aren't they? I mean, they're both competitive. They're both fiery. I love that. I don't have a problem with it. They should be competitive. If you have a cornerback or a receiver, young ones in particular, who aren't talking trash, getting into it with the guy they're going up against, in my opinion, they're kind of not doing it right. I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 square off. What has Sauce meant to the Jets to this point? What have you seen that's really impressed you about him so far?
Oh, he's been huge. I mean, last week he's going one-on-one with Jamar Chase, who's already one of the best receivers in the NFL. And Sauce Gardner really held his own. I mean, he's not backing down at all from going up against any of these top receivers. I know there was some question, of course, on what happened on that switch. The wide open Chase touchdown, whether Gardner missed the switch, whether Quincy Williams missed the switch, if LaMarcus Joyner should have been over the top, whatever. Overall, Sauce Gardner has been exactly what this Jets team needed, because they badly needed somebody opposite DJ Reed, because we knew cornerback was a huge question mark. I mean, they went out and paid good money to get DJ Reed in free agency, and then Gardner beats out Bryce Hall for the second cornerback spot, and these two have already become one of the best duos in the NFL. So Sauce has been huge. He's, I think, going to develop into a good shutdown corner, and it's really going to help the Jets, build up kind of the rest of the defense, especially the safety position, where they certainly need a lot of help. But to have that guy that is not afraid to go one-on-one with the team's best receiver, whether it's Jamar Chase or, like you said, you can go up against Pickens or Deontay Johnson this week. I wouldn't be surprised, even say the following week against Miami, he puts his face right in Tyreek Hill's face. So he's fun to watch, and I mean, this is only 3 games in. Once he gets a lot more games under his belt, and he really starts developing into that true shutdown corner, watch out. I think he's going to be fun.
He's a good player. Everything to this point that we've seen of him lives up to his billing. I've really enjoyed watching him play. He's 2 problem guys on defense. I'm not sure there is a problem guy so much on offense beyond Williams, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to see that. But what exactly do you expect? Let's just say Zach Williams. Keep calling him Zach Williams. Zach Wilson is going to start in this game. I think it's fair to say that right now. Mm-hmm. What do you expect offensively from them with Flacco? And some of this has to do with leads, being behind and everything like that. But Joe Flacco was going into week 3. He was second in the NFL in passing yards. And I think he was like 4th in attempts or something like that. Joe Flacco in 2022. Do you see the Jets looking to throw as much as that in this game, or with Wilson under center, or are they going to try to establish the run a bit more?
I think you got to let Wilson sling a little bit. How cautious they're going to be with him coming off the knee injury remains to be seen. But I mean, you've got a quarterback that's got a stronger arm than Joe Flacco. I mean, you've got to get these receivers involved too. I mean, Elijah Moore has been pretty quiet, and there's been a lot of talk on him being a breakout candidate this year as well. So if you let Zach Wilson sling it and let him get Garrett Wilson involved, let him get Elijah Moore involved, even the tight ends, it was finally nice to see Tyler Conklin get involved in the offense last week as well. You have all these guys on the outside for Zach Wilson. This was the reason they went out and got all these guys, because they're developing. They want to develop around their, the guy they invested the number 2 overall pick in. They got to see if Wilson's the guy and can he get it to these guys. So, again, could they limit him in week 1 in his first game back? Sure, that's a possibility. But they had said this entire time they're not going to play him until they feel he's 100%. So if they feel he's 100% this week, let him loose. And you could still certainly establish the run as well, because you've got 2 really good running backs. Both of them can do well in the passing game as well, including Breece Hall, who I think had 10 targets last week against the Bengals. And again, we're talking, this was with Joe Burrow, who, like you said, I think is still top 5 in passing yards, which is crazy to think in 2022 that Joe Flacco, the elite. I mean, well, he's elite, so of course he's going to be up there. But yeah.
Oh, those were the days.
They still are the days.
I feel old now.
But yeah, I think
almost like the early rise of Twitter kind of came to be what it was, based on the debate of whether or not Joe Flacco was an elite quarterback. Oh, the glory days. That's when the Steelers were good and they had a passing offense. We weren't firing the offensive coordinator after every game. Oh wait, no, that's still the same thing. we'll keep doing that.
It seems like that's coming up soon too.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But Billy, I'm going to let you go here. I appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on, and we're looking forward to a good game. Hopefully this is a really unexpected early playoff game. Jets at Steelers. What do you think?
I just hope it's at least a little bit more watchable, excuse me, than some of these first couple games from the Jets. Let's hope they can actually score more than 12 points this time.
Hey, you know what? I root for a team where you celebrate they get 17. Give me a score prediction here. What do you think for Sunday?
I'm gonna say, I think, with Zach Wilson still being kind of limited and the worry of the offensive line, I think the Steelers will get to him a little bit. So I'm going to say Steelers 24, Jets 17.
Yeah, I've heard that one. I believe that was Lance's prediction as well. I'm digging for my phone. He texted me. Lance, was that your prediction? I know you're there telling me what to do. Lance says 24-13 Steelers. I'm going to change this up a little bit. I know this is crazy. People are going to think I'm nuts, but I'm going to go Steelers 27, Jets 23. I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think this is a game the Steelers get a big play or two that will swing the difference. But a hard-fought game between two teams that are going to be a lot better a year from now than they are right now. But the Steelers are going to get this one at home. So yeah, good stuff, Billy. I appreciate you coming out here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk more. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Neil. Appreciate it.
That was Billy Ricchetti of JetWire, the editor of JetWire. Please check that out for all of the Oppo research on the Steelers' opponent this week. The New York Football Jets. It's jetswire.com. Look for Billy's stuff there, and Billy Ricchetti on Twitter. Yeah, so I was going to go over predictions here for Lance and myself. I jumped ahead of the gun. Lance, like I said, Lance is going with 24-13 good guys, Steelers over the Jets. I'm saying 27, and I want to explain why, because I can't believe I'm even saying it, but it feels like this is a get-right game for the Steelers in a couple different ways. One, if anybody has a worse offensive line situation right now than the Steelers, it's the Jets. They're beaten up. They don't have anything left, and one injury is an absolute dumpster fire. Not to insult or denigrate them or anything. It's just simply that you can't go on your fifth offensive tackle in a year and expect success. Nobody has that kind of depth. You usually don't have three of them, let alone five. So who knows how that's going to shake out for them. But I feel like that kind of defensive effort can lead to a lot of punts and can give the Steelers more offensive opportunities, even if you have to drag them kicking and screaming forward to take them. They will actually possess the ball. They're going to hit on a couple big plays here and there. I think this is a game where they're going to say, you know what, fine. Today's the day we need to do this. Now, do you want to go after the rookie? I don't think that you should. Sauce Gardner is a player. I think he's going to do something in this game. But overall, I think the Steelers offensively will get back on track. They'll get that extra possession or two that has been eluding them to this point. And they're gonna find a big play that's going to set up a touchdown that they haven't really gotten. Maybe it comes in the second half even. Who knows? As crazy as that is. So I'm saying 27-23 good guys. Steelers over the New York Football Jets, the goddamn Jets. Let's see your predictions. I'm not reading a whole lot in here. I want to get a good sense of what you guys are predicting, what you guys are thinking. Let's dive into the user segment here. Where the Steelers are through 3 weeks, if we were to rate this 1 through 10 in a couple different ways, I would say this. They are, for me, probably 9 out of 10 in terms of this is exactly what I expected to happen, and probably a 3 out of 10, I feel that they can move this ship forward. I want to dive into this again. If you look at what comes after the Jets game, that's why this game is so pivotal for the Steelers in so many ways. And Lance and I even talked about this earlier in the offseason when we were going over the schedule. The two biggest games for the Steelers early are at Browns, which they lost, and at home versus the Jets, because they needed to get both of those games. And I wasn't sure if they were going to or not. I thought they were going to start 0-3, get their first win against the Jets. It's a winnable game. The Steelers are 3.5-point favorites at home at Acrisure Stadium. But after that, you're looking at Bills on the road at Bills, back to Acrisure for the Bucks, at Dolphins, at Eagles. Then you got a bye. After that, you get the bye. That's nice. At home versus the Saints, which is a team they struggle with, regardless of the year or era they play them. They struggle with the Saints. And then you're at home versus the Bengals right before Thanksgiving. Those aren't two easy games either. So really, I mean, you hate to say this, but if you don't beat the Jets, you're legitimately looking at a 6-game losing streak heading into your bye. And then a team that you struggle with every time you play them coming in at home. And then a division game against a team that you got the win, but you didn't beat them. That's a primetime game at Acrisure Stadium against the Bengals. The season could spiral out of control very quickly, and this might be the last opportunity the Steelers have to get something positive going into. Let's be real. What's Buffalo going to be favored by against Pittsburgh at home? 9, 10. I mean, Buffalo is just simply a much better team than Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh tends to shut down their offense a little bit more than average, what you would think, but I don't think this is the year for that. They're going to break through. I like this. I'm not against this. I just feel like the Jets will get one more, 2 more possessions, 2 more field goals out of this. But the key thing I want to highlight here is Mitch continues to improve and keeps the job another week. I agree with that. As strange as that is coming from me, I agree with that. I think in a lot of ways, this is a get-right game for Mitch. I think he has the ability against this defense for what he does if they really concentrate and focus on what they've been doing, they're going to have some success with it. And this is the team they can do that against. He hasn't been inaccurate as far as not throwing catchable balls. He's just been inaccurate in putting the ball where it needs to go for a guy to make a play. In other words, if he's seeing Claypool on a short post or a drag, he's throwing it more or less to his center. He's not putting it out in front of him where he can catch it at full speed and keep going to get yards up the field. I think he's going to hit on a few of those. They're going to take a couple of these dinky 6-7 yard gains and take them for 15 to 18 yards for a change. You do a couple of those a game, you'll see his numbers go up quite a bit. The offense is going to have more success with that, and that's going to lead to 10, 14 more points than what they're averaging right now. I feel like they can do that. But Mitch will keep his job this week. I don't foresee him playing poorly in this game. It might even look like what you hope to get from a quarterback in today's NFL. I think that leads to 27 points. I'm crazy, I know. I don't think this is bad either, though, because to be honest, this score is probably what I would go with if we don't factor in the opponent as much. For what we've seen of the Steelers over the last 3 weeks, this is the kind of score I think we could bank on. The Steelers are not a whole lot better than 17 to 20 points a game. If they are, this is really what we've seen to this point. I don't know how much I trust their defense, considering that they've been on the field more than any other unit has in the NFL. They're on pace right now to play 1,300 snaps this season, which is like 25 to 30% more than average. They're going to be gassed, and I think we're seeing it already. You hope there's some life coming. You get a little bit of a break, a couple extra days, considering they played on Thursday night last week. We'll see how the defense adjusts to this more than anything else. But let's not act like they aren't up for review right now either. It's not just the offense that's a problem. Defense did not play particularly well last week. It's just they're being put into a bad position all the time. Another thing I forgot in my news and notes that I wanted to highlight, Steelers punter Presley Harvin III, or as Lance would say, Percy Harvin, looks to be injured, and the Steelers signed a familiar face, former Steelers punter Jordan Berry, to their practice squad yesterday. It sounds as if Harvin's not going to be able to go, which means they will elevate Jordan Berry for this game, not just as a punter, as a placeholder as well. It's a critically important position. We can't undermine the value of the snappers and the holders, not the Steelers this season, not after what we saw in week 1 when the Bengals didn't have a snapper and had 2 kicks blocked. One bad snap, well, 2 bad snaps and 2 missed kicks, and one of them was blocked. Don't underestimate that, but that's exactly why they signed Jordan Berry. While there were probably better punters out there in the market, they know he's a solid holder. They're not going to have a problem with it. But just for the sake of fun, let's not forget Jordan Berry's failed 2-point tries from the past. That was entertaining. I really wish I could show a few of these. Wow, Jordan Berry's an entertaining guy for sure. But yes, the obvious joke and obvious thought here is that Harvin was injured because he is punting so damn much that they've worn him out already. I don't know if that's the case. I know he's punted a lot. And, I think they're going to punt a decent amount in this game as well. Will that be a factor? I don't know. Weather is expected to be fair in Pittsburgh over the weekend. We should get a beautiful day in the Three Rivers area for Steelers Jets football. I want to thank you all for joining us today. I had to fly solo. I hope I did not waste too much of your time. Lance Williams should be done with his assignment and negotiate peace in the Middle East by sometime before kickoff. We expect to do the show again Sunday following the game. That's about 4:25 Eastern time. For those of you out that way, that's 1:25 Pacific. Hopefully it's a Steelers win. Hopefully we have more things to talk about, but more than anything, we hope that you guys come out, continue to support us the way that you have. We are deeply appreciative. I'm Neil Coulong. This is the New Standard Podcast. And as Lance would say, please tell a friend, like, and subscribe.